You are certainly welcome to take photos or video. We're also broadcasting live on Zoom. Please do not hold up any signs or disrupt the view of your fellow attendees. We're going to flip a coin who went first. I don't know if I got my coin or not. I did. Okay. Stacy, would you like to call?
Sure.
There? Here we go.
Heads?
Heads it is.
Okay.
All right. So Stacy won the coin toss. She'll be going first for the opening statement. Stacy, you also be going first for the closing statement. Candidates will be given 3 minutes for an opening statement and 2 minutes for a closing statement. We have our timekeeper here in the front row, Katie, who will be holding up a yellow sign for a 15-second warning and then a red sign for stop. We will ask approximately 6 questions, and each candidate will receive 2 minutes to respond. We will rotate which candidate answers each question first. Now, we also want your participation tonight. So at the very back table, we have some note cards. Now, if you've got a question you would like to ask of our candidates, please fill that out. You can fold it and put it in that black basket on the back table. And towards the end of the night, we'll go through those and try to get some unique questions and ask those of our candidates. Now, before we begin, I hope we can all agree, and I know the candidates themselves would know this firsthand, but being a candidate for public office is tough. It's very difficult. Our democracy depends on having people willing to take time away from their family to participate in an election. Let's please take a moment to thank our candidates here tonight. All right, with that, we'll begin with our opening statements. Stacy, you're up first.
Thank you. Many of you might know family and friends that have decided to leave our county for a different state. And that's because money flows to opportunities. So many people that we know in our churches, our schools, and our small businesses have made decisions necessary to protect their future and to give their family a better future. California's long-range growth plan has actually turned into a net loss of population, 117,000 in 2021. And I do believe that the primary reason for this is government policy. I'm running for supervisor because I believe that we're heading in the wrong direction, and I want to help our county make healthy, abundant decisions. When I started my business 33 years ago, after graduating from Cal Poly in the School of Business Management, it was relatively easy to get started. As a young graduate, I rented a spot in the South County, purchased some office equipment, and I rented a space, and I started calling and meeting the people in my community, many who are clients still today. The California dream was for the young person to capture, but in the last 5 years, the conversations have changed. Long-term clients are starting to come in and discussing their exit strategy. I know it's been difficult and challenging for our local farmers and ranchers too. The concerns are water, how the government is regulating that water, the cost and the management of water, labor costs, getting the proper workforce and dealing with employer mandates, property rights. I'm a staunch supporter of property rights. And this is a good time to discuss how my opponent and I differ in this area. She would authorize eminent domain for the Bob Jones Trail affecting multiple property owners. I would not. Other concerns are Proposition 19 and its impact on the family farms and ranches. I also believe that because the state is mismanaging our local forests and they are mismanaging our water resources, it's causing an overutilization of our groundwater. These are only a few of the stresses of our ag businesses are facing. 65% of the state believes that the California dream is dead and gone, and I don't believe that's the case. The future is bright for California and for San Luis Obispo County. As your supervisor, I will support farming and the ranching community. I will work to minimize regulation that is harming and hindering our ag industries. As your supervisor, I will be a fierce advocate for property rights, and I'm running to encourage economic growth. We need our ag community to thrive. It's vital for our community. Thank you.
Dawn?
Thank you. Hello, my name is Dawn Ortiz-Legg, and I am the 3rd District County Supervisor. I was appointed 16 months ago by Governor Newsom, and tonight I hope to share some of the results I've accomplished with the help and in support of many of you in the agriculture industry. Right now, I want to share some things that you may not know about me and my background. I grew up in a small Illinois farming community named Morris, Illinois. We lived out in the country, so I attended a farm school. I was a 4-H member. I was at a school where the boys often got out early in the spring for planting and came later in the fall after the harvest. All my friends lived on farms. I loved the lifestyle. My school was a lot like the Cresa Plains School, in the middle of nowhere. My graduating class totaled 13 people. Morris, Illinois shaped my values, being modest, balanced, and you could never get away with anything, so it was just easier to tell the truth. A real good lesson. Interestingly, Morris, Illinois is also home to a nuclear power plant that was just saved from the cutting block. So I guess it was why I loved harvesting solar energy in the Cresa Plains. It got me back to my roots, the pleasure of being with common folk, common sense people, whether I was there or in the Cuyama Valley or the Chelan Valley, driving around listening to the very ordinary and late dear Gordon Hayes, the talkative Daryl Twisselman, or the very quiet Chuck Coonley. I always say it was all those multiple experiences that now make me try to be as a good supervisor as possible, a practical problem solver. The one other thing you might not know about me is that before I got into the energy business, I was a specialist in international trade. Import, export markets, tariffs, free trade agreements for over 20 years. I even lobbied the Department of Commerce for a client to get the rules changed in the Code of Federal Regulations. I tell you this because I know how to navigate. I know how to navigate regulations, and I know how many forces the agriculturists have to navigate, whether it's the climate force, weather, regulatory agency oversight, increased costs, political forces. I always try to learn how to best help the people who feed and clothe us. It's why I'm a member of the Farm Bureau and why I work every day to make their life a little easier or their business a little smoother in doing whatever I can. I look forward to sharing more tonight. Thank you.
With that, we'll begin with our first question. And Don, we'll start with you first. Again, these are 2-minute response times. And the first question is this: what do you believe are the most important actions that the Board of Supervisors can take to support farmers and ranchers?
Well, the first important thing you can do is to listen to them. That's really critical. And I can tell you that one of the things that we didn't listen to was the ability to fallow some of the vineyard areas. That was really critical. We could have been saving groundwater in the 2 years that it was denied at the Board of Supervisors. And by fallowing and still providing water rights, you can let the ground rest. You can adjust to market forces. You can provide the opportunity to reevaluate where you're at in the market. And so these are the things that it just come from listening and sitting with people. The other thing is like what I've done in the San Luis Valley Basin with the groundwater is that by listening to the agriculturists and understanding that they are doing everything they can to reduce their consumption and their use, then we're able to negotiate better and have partnerships with the city of San Luis. So in our ability to supplement the basin to help address the 1,100 acre feet of overdraft, we now have 2 projects that are moving forward where we're going to be able to meet those goals of replenishing that basin. That all comes from working together, having a wide range of friends and associates and understanding and just listening. And that's one way, I think, Brent.
Stacy?
In business, I'm not a farmer. I'm not in the ag world, but I am a very experienced business person. So when dealing with our local agriculture and ag businesses, the first thing that I would do is meet with the players or the people that are participating that need some help, and I would listen. And support that comes from the government is what I find the best support that the government can do is get out of the way. So much of the regulations that we're experiencing in the private sector, the business sector, including ag, it's incredible. An example that I read from the Farm Bureau newsletter was, and this was on a national level, the national level, they took a fertilizer company that was selling fertilizer from out of the country. There were a couple companies and they put a tariff on it. So then what happened is that the good thing, there was an American company that was dealing with fertilizer, but that left the farmer with one entity to buy their fertilizer. Well, what happens? That causes a rate increase. That causes their costs to go up. So I'm a free market person. I believe that if we get out of the way, then they can do their job more efficiently. The other thing is being proactive. Proactive in water is probably the most exciting thing. We're working on our groundwater sustainability. But in my studies and talking to local ranchers and farmers, there's ways that we can capture more surface water. Our state government really has been, since the 70s, has not created additional surface water. And Lopez-Lake is an underutilized reservoir, is an underutilized source. I would be proactive in getting more surface water available so we would have it, so we wouldn't have to utilize our groundwater.
All right, thank you. The next three questions are all on water. This first won't surprise anybody. The first question is kind of broad in nature, broad in scope. And the question is this, and we'll start, Stacy, with you first.
Can I just repeat what I just said?
You're welcome to. This next question is, what is our Board of Supervisors doing right, and what are they doing wrong to preserve water for agricultural use?
Okay, the good thing is that the groundwater sustainability plan, especially in this area, is progressing. It's done well, and it was completed, and that's very positive. I tend to be a big picture thinker, and we are focused on the groundwater. We have to, because in San Luis Obispo, I've talked to people out in the Buckley Road area. We're building houses out there. Well, they're concerned about the houses that are on wells. So our residents are concerned and our farmers are concerned. But when I say, so the good thing, groundwater sustainability plan, good job. And that's been really a group of people, farmers in the community working together. When as the Board of Supervisor in our area, what I would be doing and hopefully we'll get a longer time to talk about this, but I'm in full support of several things that are going on. One is Central Coast Blue. That's a partnership in Grover Beach, Arroyo Grande, and Pismo, where they're taking and recharging and injecting excess water into the ground. That's awesome. What I feel is understudied and underutilized is capturing our surface water, like I said in the prior question. And we have the ability, like in Nacimiento Lake, when there's unused water, that unused water doesn't stay there. It flows to Monterey County. So what I would support, it's called a carryover position, and it would enable us to somehow capture that water. And we would have to work with different entities to build it's called a system of works leading to Lopez Lake, where we could store above ground excess water. If we had excess water, then we wouldn't have to focus on our groundwater as much.
Dawn?
Yeah. Okay, so one of the things that we have wasted $250,000 on is a environmental impact report for the planting ordinance that has been brought forth by one of Stacy's associates. That is the ability to move the 5 acre de minimis. 5 acre feet de minimis is what happens now. This is opening up now to 25 acre feet in a basin that is in overdraft. This is not a good idea. So we're waiting for the environmental impact report to say whether or not that's going to be impactful or not. And I don't know, moving from 5 acre feet to 25 acre feet for anybody to punch a hole without having any ability to have any controls seems like not a good idea. And the fact is that we spent $250,000 on an environmental report while we're doing it in a drought. That's one thing that I don't think was a good idea. One other a good idea is that we did approve the water tools. This is a water amendment tool. It's the first time the state of California has allowed us to be able to actually do some movement of water. And so that is really critical. Again, Stacy's associate on the board who supports her has voted against that. That gives us the flexibility that she talks about, but yet I just wondered if she would be able to do that if she came to the board, because the pressure's on in regards to that. But we did get that passed, and that allows us to do exactly what we were talking about, and that is to store, to move, to do a regional response to water. Water is very much like energy. It flows where it needs to go. So you want to be able to have the ability to move it around. And then I think on the good side is that we hired Blaine Reilly. He's now our sustainable groundwater management manager. And none of our groundwater sustainable plans have been approved yet by the state. So while we have submitted it at the at the San Luis Valley Basin. Ours is submitted. It's in the state right now. The one in Paso has come back for review and it's trying to get back up. But because we haven't had as much, we could have been doing a lot of the things, but unfortunately, because of the leadership, we did not have a very good path on the Paso groundwater. Thank you.
All right, our next question, Don, you'll be up first. Another water question. On March 28th, Governor Newsom issued an executive order that included a provision for counties and local groundwater agencies to put new scrutiny on the permitting for new irrigation wells. SLO County has decided in recent weeks it will not issue new irrigation well permits in parts of high-priority groundwater basins it controls. That's Paso Robles, Cuyama, and SLO Valley Basin. Do you agree or disagree with the approach SLO County has taken? Start with you, Don.
Yeah, so I think that on this, you know, there's good things about trying to hold off in regards to protecting our water sources as we are in the drought. The one thing that I'm not very happy with in this ordinance, that the way that we're going about it, is that I do think that I would like to be able to have a 1-for-1 well replacement to happen without to have the geological report that's now required. So the geological report does add additional cost. It adds time, and for producers that are having crops in the middle of summer, if a well goes down, a pump goes down, then they've got to go through this whole process in order to make sure that they can do the 1-for-1 replacement. So there's a lot that is of concern, and I am watching the health department, because this comes out of the health department, in case you don't know. So I'm watching very closely the staff and working with them on making sure that we're able to streamline and quickly respond to any of the good friends that we have that are growing vegetables or any of the other crops, because we just don't know with weather and what happens when you're a farmer, anything can go wrong. And so you want to be able to make sure that you're able to respond very quickly. So that's my answer on that, Brent.
Kind of the question again, especially the last
Absolutely.
part. Yeah.
On March 28th, Governor Newsom issued an executive order that included a provision for counties and local groundwater agencies to put new scrutiny on the permitting for new irrigation wells. SLO County has decided in recent weeks it will not issue new irrigation well permits in parts of high-priority groundwater basins it controls, Paso Robles, Cuyama, and SLO Valley Basin. Do you agree or disagree with the approach SLO County has taken?
I think that we have to do that now because we haven't properly planned. I'm going to go back to looking at the big picture. If California keeps looking at dealing with the water issues and continues on this road, the way that we manage our forests, we're going to continue to have forest fires, and we're going to continue to not have the proper water during a drought. Let's face it, we live in California, it's cyclical. In 2017, we had record snowfall. It was a record. And then here we are, you know, it was literally 3 years later, we were dealing with the drought. If we were properly looking at this issue, which I would as a business owner or as a service of government, we have to look at checking accounts and savings accounts. And when we have ample water, we have to have the ability to store it, to save it, and to distribute it to the places where we need it. It sounds like this is saying we don't want ag. I want ag, and I want ag to thrive. So if we want ag to thrive, we have to have water. So looking at the situation, we have some relatively easy fixes that we could do right away that might minimize the drought issue. But right now we're kind of stuck because we haven't done long-range planning, which I'm a good long-range planner. We really probably, because we are limited in our resource, we have to follow those directions, which it's too bad.
All right, one more question on water, and Stacy, you'll be up first on this one. The city of San Luis Obispo lets more than 1,100 acre feet of water drain out through the San Luis Creek to the ocean each year. This is water in excess of what it's required to release to preserve aquatic habitat. Farmers in the Edna Valley have been trying to negotiate with the city for more than 5 years to use this water for agriculture, but have been unsuccessful. What role can a county supervisor play to help this situation?
Well, that's so interesting because I hadn't heard that fact, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. We have areas where we can store unused state water, unused Nacimiento water, or subcontractors that have unused water, and we have to find a place to store it. So here we are, we have a potential solution. And as a supervisor, I would work with the entities and talk about the importance and the protection that we have to have water for our area, for our agricultural businesses to survive and thrive. And let's face it, it's a vital part of our economy. So being a part of the supervisor, I would lead the way. Water would be the utmost priority as a supervisor for me.
So this is part of our plan for the sustainable groundwater management of the Edna Valley. And I'm very happy to report that this week I had a meeting with the city manager, and I have meetings this week with other members of the city council. Brought the mayor out from San Luis out to the Edna Valley, and San Luis to some of the growers. And we are now on a 30-day track to get this agreement done so that we'll be able to have that recycled water come into the basin here, which will be stored. The details have been thoroughly worked through in many ways. There's still some things to do, but the fact is that this is now on the agenda. And so this is from relationships. This is from, again, working really hard and trying to understand both sides, trying to know that the city has a responsibility to its citizens as far as what it does with its water. So they want to make sure that they're doing the right thing. But if you're an honest broker and you have the ability to really sit down with folks and try to get everybody to agree, we're on our way on this one. So I'm very happy about this. This is one of the things that makes me very excited about my role and really focused on the things that I can do as a supervisor and not be worried about everything that's out of my control, but the things that are in my control, because there's so much to be done. It's really important to just stay focused on the authority that you have and the ability to use the tools that are in your toolbox and to get results. And getting results for the San Luis Valley is probably one of my greatest pride moments, I have to say, in the 15 months that I've been a supervisor. So I'm very happy about that. Thank you.
All right, enough water questions. We'll move on to some other topics. Our next question is about permitting. And Don, you'll be up first. Question is this: the county planning and building department is often a source of frustration for many of our farmers, ranchers, and rural property owners, probably everybody. I don't think I can leave him out that list. It's difficult to get clear guidance on permit requirements, and the permit process is slow and onerously expensive. What can be done to improve this problem?
Well, there's a couple of things. First off is that I'm asking Supervisor Arnold right now to join me into making sure that we add more building inspectors and code check people. So there's 5 positions that there's 4 positions right now that we need. I tried to make a deal yesterday on trying to expand that department. We have had 9 new people in the planning department, but those 4 people in the building will really help smooth things. But I'm really happy you asked me this question, Brent, because tonight I got to announce that because of the frustration of things like poor Mr. Donati trying to get his well and some generation done, really brought forth the fact that because of COVID, the doors have been shut. And so tonight I'm very happy to announce that the planning and building department will be open from 8:30 a.m. till noon on Monday and Fridays. This is something that I've worked very hard on, just this in understanding some of the challenges. And so before, the ability to have to deal with making an appointment and all that is now in the past, and we're moving forward. Starting May 16th, people will be able to walk in, get those answers, get things done quickly. So those are a couple of things that are going on right now that I actually touched and have something to do with, that I think is going to help the agriculturists get to where they need to go, which is back to work and making sure that they're able to do their planting and making sure that they're able to monitor their crops and their workforce and all the things that are coming at them.
Stacy?
I would make, when looking at development or looking at building permitting, I would encourage the consideration for applications for development permits. Let's say we're converting raw land to single or subdivisions. We were doing some kind of development. One of the major roles of a county supervisor is land use. And I would deem it approved unless the county staff could show that application violates zoning ordinances or public safety. So, we've got the zoning. If the project fits the zoning, then it's approved unless they can show that zoning ordinance or public safety is at stake. You know, another issue is CEQA. The state legislature should adopt provisions with respect to land use regulatory statutes as well as CEQA. Basically, CEQA kills a lot of projects. Is there a way that locally we could somehow exempt housing developments from CEQA? Could we declare some kind of housing emergency? Is there something that we could do locally to affect change? Currently, there's also lots of fees, regulatory costs that go into building a project. I would like to see those costs examined, and I'm very happy that our department is open from 8 to 12, but I would encourage all business offices to hold regular business hours, a full day, so that whenever someone was going to get some permits, that there would be someone there that could help assist with the project. So regulations, costs, fees, all of these are decisions that are causing people to flow out of the state. Is there a way locally that we can diminish regulations, lower the fees, look at our regulations and costs and lower that? Sorry.
It's okay. All right, Stacy, you'll be up first for this next question, I should say. It's on housing. The cost and availability of housing continues to plague our entire community. This limits the ability for our children to live here and carry on the family farm, and it also makes it difficult for farmers to house their workers. What is your plan to make housing more affordable and abundant?
Housing, one of my favorite topics. When we look at the housing stock and what we are building right now, so often we're building larger homes that are young kids and young families that are trying to stay here, they can't afford. Different, life's a ladder, different entry levels, tiny homes, mobile home parks, condos, different levels. So when someone starts in a tiny home and they work in San Luis and they start accumulating some assets, then they can sell the tiny home and then they can move up to something larger. So different levels of entry-level housing is important. When we look at the cost of building property for a developer, if they were to develop a 4,000 square foot home versus a smaller home, do you know that the costs are almost the same? So if a developer is going to make more profit on a 4,000 square foot home, guess what? But we need 4,000 square foot homes. We don't necessarily need 4,000 square feet. We just need a menu of homes for people to be able to shop and to stay here. So also reevaluating those fees and costs again, it's very important. 3 years ago, the board requested a study for undeveloped land for more homes that could be developed. My question is, where is it? We're looking for ways that we can grow our cities and towns. At the same time, the state is actually encouraging us to grow more houses, but yet they aren't developing the water. That's why I'm running, because the government that we're dealing with it's not working together. Okay, you want more housing, but we're not developing more ways to save water. So there's a problem there. Thank you.
Don?
Yeah. So we just want to note that Senate Bill 8 and Senate Bill 9 actually are for small ADUs, and they do not require CEQA. So there is some movement in reducing the ability to add additional housing without having to go through the California Environmental Quality Act. So that's good. On the other aspect is that, you know, we call this thing the missing middle, where there's opportunities to take what we would look at in my neighborhood as probably family size homes, and actually could be divided into potentially two residences or other forms like that. If you look at what life was maybe at the 20s, the 30s and 40s, you would often find in a neighborhood that would be somewhat, you'd maybe have a family residential, and then maybe there would be a boarding house kind of thing. It could be a combination of things, which brings me to one of the most important things that we're working on that I'm really trying to focus with the planning and building department is multi-zones. So multi-zones would be that you would have a plot and you would be able to have that generational approach where somebody could come in with a single person, so they only need a little bit. And then there's also right next door could be something you would graduate to if you had a family and children. And then there could be something on the next side when you're maybe single level, if you're getting older and you're, a couple or, maybe alone later in life. But having multi-generational, it's also having to do with like what we're talking about on the homelessness, is that having that multi-generational, zonal kind of plots would actually be the kind of communities that people want. It's really what we need for each other. I think on the demographics, we talked earlier, I think Mr. Korsgaden talked about why population's changing. The population's changing also because we have a high death rate because we're an aging population. And so there's a lot to that. So we really are changing in all sorts of ways, size of family, ages, and all of that. So those are some ideas.
All right, our next question is a kind of a general topic, and Don, you'll be up first.
Okay.
Where do you get your information about agriculture?
Well, let's see. I think that I read the Friday news report and then, as I noted from the very beginning in my opening statement, I talk to a lot of agriculturists. I love picking up the phone. That's what I do. I really enjoy having the opportunity to talk to people on the ground. And so whether it's the citrus grower, the grape grower, the vegetable grower, my own wonderful advisor on the Agriculture Advisory Board, even talking to some of the water people, just really trying to gain some information in regards to the topic at hand. Or as I did last night, I just came to the Agriculture Advisory Board and learned more about some of the pumping issues and the new what's it called? The new ordinance that came out, the emergency water pumping ordinance. So, it comes from a variety of sources is where it comes from. And again, I think when you grow up with ag in your background, you also understand that you understand that the people that are doing it is probably going to tell you what you need to know. So that's where I get a lot of my information.
Stacy?
Where I get my information is I've been receiving this Farm Bureau email. So that's been a great source. Truly, it's very informative. I came from the Central Valley in Visalia, and I have family that is in citrus over in the Lindsay area. In Visalia, we were an agricultural community when I was raised there. So I do know farmers. I have to say, in this area, I've talked to the local farmers and also the ranchers up in the North County. I am not an expert in ag, but what I'm an expert at is relationships. And if at the board, it came before me an issue regarding agriculture and issues regarding the farming community, it would be very easy for me to find out who had the information that I needed to answer the questions and come up with a very solid decision for our community, the ag community, because I believe our foundation in our county is the ag community. Whether you're a person that drinks wine on the weekend or you drink the fresh produce or eat the fresh produce at the farmer's market, it's critical that our agricultural thrives. So bottom line is my information would come from the people that are in it and know it the most and have the most experience in our community.
All right. Our next question will be on energy. Stacy, you'll be up first for this question.
Okay.
Last week, as you may have heard, Governor Newsom said, keep Diablo Canyon Power Plant open. I don't know where he's been, but now he's so open. What should our Board of Supervisors do to help keep Diablo open?
This is easy for me. It is scream from the mountaintops. We need that energy. We want that energy. I am a firm believer that Diablo Canyon should remain open for beyond 2025. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. We need the energy. It's clean energy. It's over 1,500 jobs. and it creates millions and millions of dollars that infiltrate through our community. And what does it do? It gives us money for police, fire, also our education, and also through our nonprofits. That money flows through our community. It's a vital point, a vital source of not only energy, but financial energy for our county to be successful. So I have to bring out the point that my opponent, and I hope that she will explain this, wrote the letter that said that she was in favor of Diablo, took a contribution from PG&E, and then did not sign the letter. It's very legal what she did. What's confusing is not to have the leadership to say, we want this, we want to go to the very top, which would be the state of California, say, not only do we want this, we need it. And so it was confusing. Truly, if it weren't confusing, I was actually reconsidering running, but we cannot have a confusion in District 3. I am fully aware of what we need there. And I decided at that point, we have to have strong leadership when it comes to energy. Sorry.
So I want to say that I am the person that was out front on this. You know, Jordan Cunningham and I have always been close on a lot of things, even though we were opponents in 2016. This is one of them. I want to just point out that my opponent often confuses things in regarding authority and regarding the fact of how it works when you're in the position that we're in. During the time when the Board of Supervisors was sending a letter up to Gavin Newsom, I was still within a year of my foreign political rules, which says that I cannot vote on something that I had received payment from. And my last paycheck came from PG&E on March 16th. And so that was prior to that. So at that point in time, I was following the rules by abstaining from that letter vote. But in the meantime, as I work with county council, as I work with my own council, I have every right to write letters in support of the nuclear power plant, which I do. And I support it for multiple reasons, but mostly it's because it's 24/7, 2.2 gigawatts of clean, base load power, carbon-free base load power. That's critical for our grid. It's critical for the transmission of energy and to stabilize it as we bring on renewables, which I'm very familiar with. And I am the one supervisor that has added more renewables on than any other supervisor in this county, or up to 500,000 homes worth of power. But what's really important is to have firm power to stabilize our transmission lines. And otherwise, my fear is that not only would lights blink, but also the cost to do stabilization is going to be passed on to lower income people who can't afford to put solar on their homes. So there's multiple reasons why the governor is now taking a second look, and I'm glad he has. That's as far as, you know, we can go at the board at this point, is to just be able to, have our own opinions, but it is really at the state level for the regulatory, the state and the federal level. Thank you.
All right, our next question is on a popular topic in our community, a difficult one, homelessness. Don, you'll be up first. The question is this: San Luis Obispo County recently adopted a new 5-year plan to reduce homelessness. What do you like and dislike about the plan? And are there other steps the Board of Supervisors should be taking?
Well, I like a lot of things about the plan. I like the plan because it actually came in combination of a lot of hard work of people that have been talking for some time. I mean, I do want to recognize that we did come out of a pandemic, and it really pulled off the shield of all the inequities, as well as the increase of housing costs and a number of other things. So it's really important that the things that we did at the board last week were in conjunction with the Citizens Commission on Homelessness, and basically having a department director was really critical. So that is a very big important piece, is that we need to have a department director. We needed to have something besides a commission. We needed that management. So we've done that. We're having a one-stop shop. one of the things that happens with homeless people is that they lose a lot of their identity, medical card, social security, driver's license. And so having that one-stop shop will be able to have one place for them to go to be able to, on Tuesdays, the DMV will be there. On Wednesdays, it's going to be social services for getting their, social cards or whatever. It could be a lot of different things. I think what we can do at the county, and I think that we're getting ready to do that, I'm really hopeful, is that we could really look at that inventory of land to be able to put forth properties that could be utilized for low-income housing. We have a lot of land. We are a county with 3,700 acres, square miles, 3,700 plus square miles. And so there's a lot of places that we could be utilizing for additional housing. So those are a few things. I mean, I think that there's some other aspects, and that is that we really need to be focused on our budget in regards to supporting the people who are working in this industry, both in the mental health and in the homeless sector. We have a shortage of workers. So that's going to be really important to be able to boost that sector.
Stacy?
In business and in life and in government, I think when we look at outcomes, that comes by what we think and what we speak. And what concerns me about Diablo Canyon, back to that issue, was when I listened to my opponent after the letter was written, there was only talk of decommissioning, not ways of saving that plant. It's the same thing with the homelessness, which is the issue. They're very similar. I'm very proud of the county that we've come up with a department director, and we're organizing our government to be proactive. But what I'm thinking about and what I'm speaking about is having a zero homeless issue in our zero numbers of homeless people in our county. So how do we do that? What I recommend is calling this what it is, and it's an emergency. The insurance industry has dealt with emergencies for decades. My recommendation is to create emergency triage locations throughout our county. And that is where we can house our medical, our mental services, our detox services, our veteran services. Then once those are created and housed, we then have muscle behind what we're thinking about. What we really want to do is house and support the people that are unhoused. We create a county ordinance, and that county ordinance says that there's no public sleeping. It's compassionate for everybody. It's compassionate for our homeowners. It's compassionate for those that are on the street. Once the ordinance is in place, then it's also compassionate for our police and fire, our emergency services, because they have a place to take people. The shelters are not a home, they're a bridge. They're a bridge into helping them with our nonprofits, with our mental services. And it doesn't need to be services through the county. We can look at outsourcing those.
All right, we'll do time for one more question. Stacy, you'll be up first for this question. It's this. Campaigns, as you may know, can often get heated and divisive. Please tell us one positive thing about your opponent.
That's easy. I think Don Ortiz-Legg is very likable and is very likable and a good person.
Don?
I think that Ms. Korsgaden is a good businesswoman, and that she takes care of her clients, and that she is a happy member of her community. And so wish her the best.
All right, and we'll conclude with closing statements. These are 2 minutes each. And Stacy, you're up first.
I do believe that the best is yet to come for San Luis Obispo County. The attraction of our county includes our beautiful farms, vineyards, and ranches. Anyone that has gone to a vineyard in the fall or our rolling hills in the spring knows exactly what I'm talking about. San Luis Obispo County needs more small business owners involved in local government. As supervisor, I will bring practical approaches to lowering our cost of living and work to grow jobs and opportunities in our county. Our ag community is dealing with local, state, and federal pressures. I can't imagine. It must take great fortitude to be a farmer and cultivate the land. I'm sure they ask themselves, when do I get to farm? Business owners and farmers have pressures coming from all areas that make them take them away from their work. Water issues, local, state, and federal regulations, labor cost, weather, cost of equipment, tax codes affecting family legacy plans, cost of materials such as seed and fertilizer, and wildfires. These are just to name a few. There's so often there's a complete disconnect between government and the people that government serve. I decided to step up and run for this race because decisions are being made that are adversely affecting the hardworking people in our community, and they are fleeing our community. I advocate for personal freedom and personal responsibility. As your supervisor, I will be a fierce advocate for property rights. I will work to minimize regulations that are harming our ag industries. I will advocate for diverse water resources, proactively working with the state government, and I will advocate for diverse energy resources. Innovation does not come from government. It comes from the ground up, not the top down. I would be honored to earn your vote. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, let's see, how do I want to close? I think that I just want to say that, you know, I'm doing this job and I'm doing it with a full face towards the public. And this is not a job that you just make a lot of promises. That's easy. You know, what it really comes down to is that what results do you have to show? And I think that in the 16 months that I've been on the job, I've actually had more successes than anybody ever anticipated, but it's because I understand and I know how to navigate. I know how to navigate people and I know how to navigate the building. And I think that the one thing that I'm very proud of is that I'm endorsed by the employees union of the county, because they know that I am there to support them, because without supporting them, you can't really get any of these promises done. You've got to be working with staff and you've got to be working with your constituents and your stakeholders. And so, you know, are there things that I've done completely perfect? No, but there's a lot of things that I have accomplished and I'm really happy about that. I think that I want to note that as far as property rights, you know, I am a big supporter of property rights. I don't know where this is coming from that I'm supporting eminent domain. I've never said I was supporting eminent domain on the Bob Jones Trail. That's not true. But I can tell you that the board majority that we have now did eminent domain twice since 2018. So that needs to be put into the record, okay? Not me, the board majority. And then the second thing is as far as fire and being prepared for things like that, I'm the one that has the CAL FIRE endorsement. I'm very proud of that because they know that I'm working with them closely. I'm realistic. I get results. I'm very much about listening to everybody and ensuring the safety of our community. That's one of my most important things. That should be everybody's most important thing. What's in your own personal safety, to being sure that if as a public servant, you should be out there, out front, always working towards keeping your community safe. And then lastly, I would say that in regards to some of the things, a lot of these things we are doing, we have a detox center. Why we don't have it completely done is because of a shortage, but there's so much more to do. And I look forward to getting your vote in June 7th. Thank you.
All right, let's give our candidates a round of applause. Thank them. We're going to take a very brief break. We will start back at 6:30. We're going to begin with our opening statements, and these are 3 minutes apiece. And just for my sanity and convenience, we're going to start with you, Geoff. Just work our way, if that's okay. But we won't make you go first for the end. I think it'll break up differently. So with that, 3 minutes for opening statements, starting with you, sir.
Thank you very much for hosting the forum tonight. Ag is very dear to my heart, and so is business. So you hear a lot about businesses picking up and leaving the state. Farmers don't have that luxury. You can't pick up and move your land. You can't move your orchard. They need to stay. We need to fight for them. We need to help get less regulation. We need to fight way better in our county to help them succeed, or we're going to be the next 21st Dust Bowl. With that being said, I'm Geoff Auslen. I'm running for District 2 Supervisor, and I do understand a lot about agriculture. When I was a kid in high school, I grew up in Morro Bay and Los Osos. I spent a lot of time on an apple orchard. I also lived there for a long time. We were organic. It was organic from the 60s. I will tell you flat out that the best stewards of the land environmentally, water-wise, are ranchers and farmers. Everything's repurposed. They know how to manage their crops. They know how to manage their water. They do everything absolutely to the best of their ability and try and survive. I went to farmers market. We pressed cider. I saw regulation come in. It got worse and worse. We also raised sheep. So you have to get your young kids involved in FFA and 4-H to keep things going. Food does not come from the grocery store. It actually comes from a farm, which people have to be able to raise. We need to be doing everything we can, especially in this county, to make sure they have water, less regulations, workforce and labor, and housing for the labor force. We're not doing a good job of that. We've got to get better at it. The high cost of living here is not helping. Sacramento doesn't know what the heck they're doing. The regulation they're putting in nonstop is killing us. And then we have county regulation on top of it. We've got to just start focusing. Some of the things that we are doing when it comes to killing our farms, now you can't do a well. We have to be able to do well replacement right now if you go dry and you're farming. This is insane that you can't get a permit in some of your areas. It should be a direct replacement instantly. Our board of supervisors have adopted what they think should be happening for water. It is not good for anybody. We need it for housing. We need it for ag. We need to be capturing everything we can. Without that, we're going to become the Dust Bowl, and we need our ag. We need our lettuce grown here, our strawberries grown here. We have to have a balance between tourism and our grapes, our cattle. Our ranchers are having a rough time. They can't get any money for their cattle. They can't afford to feed them because of the drought that we're in. Thank you.
Next, Supervisor Gibson.
Thank you, Red, and thank the Farm Bureau for putting this on. It's no doubt that we live in challenging times. You know, we're coming out of a pandemic that has really stressed us, both physically, emotionally, socially, economically. And there's a lot to be concerned about. How are we going to recover? How are we going to continue to fend off this, this virus that seems relentless? We have to do some economic recovery. We also have lingering here a bunch of other things that are concerning. One of them is the drought, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that since this is the Farm Bureau. And, you know, just as a sidebar, Mr. Auslen is wrong. You can get a well replacement. It's a little more complicated under an executive order the governor signed, but it can be done. You know, the things that burden us extend. You know, unfortunately, we are seeing the toxicity of the national political scene visit us even here in San Luis Obispo County, attacks on our democracy. And unfortunately, we saw some more of that with in our board chambers today with insinuations, misrepresentation, and frankly, outright lies about voter fraud. All of this seems to weigh on us. But at the same time, we have a remarkable set of opportunities ahead of us. The pandemic has shown us a variety of ways in which we can act differently and how we conduct business differently. Opportunities that have sprung up, and particularly in the funding that's coming from our state and federal government. We now have funding to address homelessness in a way that we have not before. Funding to address housing, and indeed housing in the agricultural sector is important, and I can talk a little bit about what we've done. And housing funding to address important things like broadband internet connections, which in the modern world of farming are going to be hugely important. We have a burgeoning ag tech sector in this county. Part of our economic development strategy that I'm very excited about. It's going to depend on getting the infrastructure in place, and the internet's going to be key among them. So I'm running, I think you all know, I'm the longest serving member of the Board of Supervisors, a little over 15 years. I have the experience. I have the deep knowledge of county government. I have the set of relationships within this county with different agencies and jurisdictions like cities, but also at the state and the federal level, because as you look at accomplishment, how we get things done, It's not one person. It's not even one agency anymore. The problems are way too complex. Our water problems, our social problems like homelessness. This is going to require teamwork and regional approach. I think many of you know that I have a long history in agriculture. I'm the 5th generation of my family to have farmed. I farmed the county's oldest orange grove for 25 seasons from 1990 until the end of 2014. So I've
Sorry,
been there.
Supervisor, your time has expired. You may not have
We'll
saw
get-
the card.
we'll
Sorry
get
about
back-
that.
We'll get back to that.
Yes, sir. Dr. Jones.
I'm Dr. Bruce Jones, the only candidate endorsed by the Republican Party for District 2. I'm not a career politician. I'm a retired orthopedic surgeon. My life's experiences have prepared me to be an excellent supervisor, serving more than 3 years on the Templeton Area Advisory Group, 2 years as the TAG chair, has given me opportunity to talk to farmers, ranchers, homeowners, and business owners about their concerns. I do understand the issues that matter to North County citizens. TAG has also given me experience dealing with county ordinances and procedures. As a member of the board of a nonprofit hospital that served a population larger than the total population of SLO County, I evaluated solutions for the medical care of that community and made difficult budget decisions for an organization with more employees and a larger budget than our county government. These and other experiences have prepared me well to be an effective supervisor on day one. As a physician on the Board of Supervisors, I will be able to interpret and question data presented by the Health Department. Now that the Board of Supervisors has regained oversight authority on health issues, my input will be essential. What will I do in office? Fully fund law enforcement and fire protection. Reevaluate county services handling mental health, drug and alcohol addiction, and our homeless problem. The solution is to keep and support that works and eliminate what does not work. Help small business, agriculture, and tourism thrive. Clean up the planning department permit process. Support parents' rights to make medical and educational decisions for their children. Bring technology to play to use our water more efficiently. Ban exporting and banking water in our basins. Work to keep Diablo Canyon open and functioning. Protect Proposition 13. Check out my website, jonesforsupervisor.com. I am Dr. Bruce Jones, the better Bruce, the best Bruce for District 2.
Mr. Whitworth.
Good evening. My name is John Whitworth, retired Colonel in the United States Marine Corps, 30 years. Served as a medevac pilot in Vietnam. I'm a small business owner, been in the area for over 20 years. I hold a master's degree in education from UC Santa Barbara. And one of my most important roles, I think, is I'm a licensed California building contractor. I did that for 10 years while I was in Santa Barbara, so I understand a lot about the building permit process, which is a major concern with our county. As far as the ag community, water, as we know, is the biggest issue, or as well as land use. But first of all, water. We have to protect our water, folks. Our water needs to stay here. And what is happening is, I'm going to use the word, we have water pirates. We have people that are trying to take this water and sell it. Large organizations, investors are buying up this land to take it and eventually sell it. As District 2 Supervisor, that will never happen as long on my watch. We will not let our water belongs here, and we will keep it here, and we're not going to sell it to other people for profit. Another thing in the ag community, I think was a big home run, was the SB 539 that was passed that basically lessened the tax issues of passing your farm on to family members and whatever. Big home run. Too much government getting their fingers in what we do. And again, as District 2 Supervisor, anything I can do to lessen government at all levels, including the county, I am for. The housing issue for farmers, ag folks, I have a couple ideas that we help them build very clean, small units for the workers that come in periodically during the picking season, but then we can also use that, allow them to rent those out, and that could help with our building issues. Okay, but in number one, the county needs to serve the ag community as well as all the folks in the county, not vice versa. I'm very concerned about much of what goes on in the county, and I'll share some of that with you a little bit more, but the county is here to serve the people, not vice versa. And after talking to a lot of people in the last couple months that I've been running, I'm finding that there's a lot of unhappiness by the folks out there. So I'm a problem solver, and the ag community, I'll sit down with them once I get elected, and I will determine what the issues are, and then we'll go to bat for you.
All right, thank you. We're going to start out with a general question. Again, these are just 2-minute response times, please. Mr. Whitworth, we'll start with you first, and then we'll kind of mix up the order, and Geoff, you will be second. Mr. Whitworth, your question is this: what do you believe are the most important actions the Board of Supervisors can take to support farmers and ranchers?
Well, first of all, I did mention a couple of those things, but the water issues of protecting our water. And one of the things I feel very strongly about is if you look at the state of California Constitution, primary says that primary user, owner of the property, owns that water all the way down to the core of the earth. And the owner of the property, especially the small folks, need to have that not luxury, but be able to do that and be able to control their land, their water, and keep that away from the big guys. Again, I've used the word water pirates. People are coming in here and taking our water, but also making sure that the ag community gets their fair share, that they are able to pump when they need to pump, be able to get what they need, and was fair for everybody. And I know the ag community is not asking for any more. They don't want to sell their water. They want to use it to grow their crops. And that's exactly what I would support.
Thank you. Geoff?
Could you repeat?
I sure can. It's a kind of general question. What do you believe are the most important actions the Board of Supervisors can take to support farmers and ranchers?
Some of the things the Board of Supervisors can definitely do is make it easier in regulation for agriculture, whether it is wells and wells replacement. As my opponent, Mr. Gibson, just said, you can get one, but you have to go through a lot of red tape. We need to cut the red tape. We have to keep our farmers moving forward, not stepping back. We need water solutions in this county. We have a drought. I'm sure we're coming back to that. There's a lot of solutions that we can do with that. Some of the things we can do immediately is get into an MOU again for South County for the desal plant. That would help our South County folks in water. On the North County, we should be taking the full allotment of Nacimiento water, raising the dam at Nacimiento so we have more water, which will charge the basin. We do need to stop some of the folks that have come into the area that are trying to steal all of our water and sell it down the line. We do know one has a lot of water all over the state. It's not good for ag. We have to have a great balance between agriculture and tourism so we can have economic prosperity for all, along with workforce housing. Those are things that we can be working on. You're not going to get workforce housing on the coast, but you can do it inland and make it affordable for our farmers and our ranchers to be able to survive. We also need to get more offices open in North County to help them get through regulation, get through problems when they have it. We need to be opening offices for permitting 8 hours a day, not 4 hours a day, and helping our ag out. Thank you.
Bruce Gibson?
Yeah, thank you. So let's talk about what we have done already. This county has a very strong right to farm ordinance. We also are fierce defenders of the Williamson Act, and I've been involved in that for as long as I've been involved in public issues, long before I took office. We continue to provide Williamson Act contracts, even though the state does not backfill the property tax that we lose. This county has been an awesome supporter of farmers markets. My parents managed the Cambria Farmers Market from 20 years, from 1989 till they retired in 2009, and our Ag Commissioner's office was great about dealing with things at the state level. And most recently, we have improved our land use regulation on farm support quarters, making it much easier to get them in areas where we actually need to house, and housing is tremendously important. Overall, looking into the future, of course, securing the water supply is fundamentally the biggest issue. Both the SGMA, or Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, and the big basins like the Paso Basin, but also in places like the Adelaida, where we just are commissioning a study of the geology there to try to get a handle on how we can manage that water supply better. You know, there's the water pirates is a talking point of certain folks in the North County. We have an ironclad no water export ordinance in this county. And what's more is, what water are we actually going to be exporting? You know, the Paso Basin was drawn 20,000 acre feet over its safe yield last year. Well levels continue to go down. So this idea that there are guys out there with eye patches and broadswords, you know, in the local bars going, you know, I want your water. You listen and ask, have you heard any specific evidence that that's actually true? We've got work to do, and we need leadership to get it done.
Bruce Jones.
I do have some thoughts that might be a bit unique in solving our problem with water. There's new technology available in irrigation systems that uses groundwater or ground moisture sensors and weather variables to monitor the flow rate. This has proven to increase crop yields as well as save about 20% of the water and electricity used. Our county needs to explore the possibility of grants that will help farmers make this transition to this new type of irrigation. Saving water is a benefit for all of us. Everybody's been waving their farmer credentials up here, and I have not yet. I was born on a sheep farm, but I think that may not be that relevant to the things we're talking about tonight. There's a problem with water banking of underground aquifers. Who owns the keys to the bank? Water that's banked from an outside source, that water belongs to the banker. And once that available space is taken up, the overliers, the ranchers, farmers, and cities no longer have access to that space. Banking is a system that makes possible for water right holders to store water in underground aquifers for future use. It creates the potential for sale of water to distant destinations. Water is banked during good years with good rainfall, and then withdrawn during the times when you have dry years. I oppose water banking and exporting of water from our basins.
All right. Our next question, Bruce Jones, you'll be starting first, and then followed by Bruce Gibson. The question is this, another water topic. On March 28th, Governor Newsom issued an executive order that included a provision for counties and local groundwater agencies to put new scrutiny on the permitting for new irrigation wells. SLO County has decided in recent weeks it will not issue new irrigation well permits in parts of high priority groundwater basins it controls, Paso Robles, Cuyama, and SLO Valley Basin. Do you agree with the approach SLO County has taken?
I think that there's two parts to this. A well that goes dry needs to have permission to re-drill. And I think all of us at this table would agree with that. I think that holding back on new wells until we have solved some of our quantity problems in our water, groundwater basins might be useful. It needs to be limited in time, and we need to solve the water problem so we can move forward.
You
Bruce
want me to
Gibson?
go next?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you're talking about Executive Order N7-22, which the governor signed recently. It has a strict prohibition on issuing new wells unless certain conditions are made. One of them is you have to prove that the drilling of any new well is not going to cause subsidence and it's not going to interfere with other wells. I mean, that last one's a fundamental matter of fairness, you know, that we weren't going to be drying up our neighbors' wells. So let's be clear about what the county situation is. And I can give you the flow chart, the path by which new wells can be drawn. If it's a replacement well in kind, in general location and in depth, you can get it, but you do have to submit a geotechnical report to show that these conditions are not going to be met. If it's a new well somewhere out in a medium or high priority basin, the black letter of the executive order says you've got to get the approval of the Groundwater Sustainability Agency that covers that particular part of the basin. All four of the GSAs that control, for instance, the Paso Basin, have made clear that they are not going to be looking at new wells, new draws on this basin. And again, going back to what I said just a minute ago, safe yield of the Paso Robles groundwater basin is about 60,000 acre feet a year. Last year, 80,000 acre feet were taken from that basin, and the well levels continue to decline. So this is desperate, you know, this is drought, and this is a tremendous burden on agriculture. I realize that, but there is a lot of work that yet we need to do on the Sigma process to get us to a place where we have a sustainable water supply. And I'm eager to get going on that.
Geoff Auslen, followed by Mr. Whitworth.
So we just heard this regulation. You have to go get a report, a geo report. That costs money, that takes time. When you're out of water, it's a big problem. If you already have a well, you should be able to replace it instantly. Saying it has to be at the same depth, that's a problem, because if you're dry, you have to go deeper. How do you get water? That's the stuff that we have a problem with. Overregulation, once again, and our county needs, our supervisors need to be fighting this back a little bit for replacement wells. I totally disagree on that issue. Our farms are vital. Our houses are vital. They need to be able to have water. We could be solving the Paso Basin by using, I believe it was 2014 with Sacramento, when the voters voted for more water storage. I think we have one project in the state now. There's money in Sacramento. Our tax dollars are there. We need to get that money, raise the dam at Margarita, get all of the allotment from Nacimiento, and start having it run down the Salinas River. It will do two things: recharge the basin, number one. Number two is, if the Salinas is flowing, as it gets to Monterey County, you don't have to release as much water from San Antonio and Nacimiento for salt intrusion, because you have water going the entire time. Those are some of the things that we could be doing, and we should be doing it now. This is where I disagree with Supervisor Gibson. He's been in office 15 and a half years. We got the project done. We got the water projects done for Paso, Templeton, and Atascadero, San Luis from Nacimiento with a pipeline. We need to be utilizing the whole thing. I think we could be working it with Sacramento. My opponent claims he's got connections up there. How come we're not using it? Thank you.
Mr. Whitworth?
Well, my answer is going to be very short and blunt. You own the land. You own that land as a primary owner, and the state constitution states that very clearly. California state constitution. If you need to drill a well or more than one well, you go get a permit, and that's your right to do it. Very simple.
All right, thank you. Another question on water. We'll start with Bruce Gibson first, followed by Bruce Jones. The county has partnered with the U.S. Geological Survey and the Upper Salinas Los Tablas Resource Conservation District to better understand groundwater issues in the Adelaida area. What role should the county have in regulating groundwater in Adelaida?
that remains to be seen based on the information. I was at the meeting last week, I think it was, in Atascadero, where the USGS rolled out its plans to do phase 2 of a 7-phase study. And the comment in the room right there was, we are at the very start of understanding the very complicated geology of the Adelaida area. It is among the most complex geologies in the world, being the Franciscan Formation, that I would love to chat about at length, but that's not the topic of the day. What we need to do is we need to pursue all 7 phases of that study to really understand how that water system works. And it's very different from a big basin like the Paso Basin. From there, we need to make good public policy off of that technical information. And I think many of you know I have a PhD in geophysics, not specifically in hydrogeology, but I understand Earth systems, and I also understand that we need to make solid public policy. The key values there, the key goals, is the fair allocation of that resource. That's the major role of government, is to be sure that when a resource is available to a population of folks, that no one benefits unduly, everybody gets a piece of the benefit. So it remains to be seen. The actual role of county government in that regulation depends on the situation and on the, how should we say, the mix and the desires of the population that are the beneficiaries of that. So that's going to be a couple-year project, and we'll look forward to seeing what happens.
Bruce Jones?
I was also at that presentation. The truth is, we're waiting for information, and we do need information about that watershed area to make rational choices. I actually live in that watershed area, and I do care greatly about the water there. But it's going to be a couple of years till we have the data to make decisions that are based on science. Thank you.
Mr. Whitworth?
Well, pretty much what I've been hearing, but the Adelaide situation is very early in understanding exactly what the issues are or what we have there. Sir Gibson talked about 7 different things that have to happen. We need to understand. So as District 2 Supervisor, once that information is determined, then again, we would determine the fair allocation of that water and how it's used.
Geoff Auslen?
This is where I agree with my opponents here. We have to have the facts. You can't make decisions without the facts. So there's studies going on right now. Unfortunately, studies take forever. You can't come in and regulate things without knowing the facts. And right now, we don't know the impact. We don't know the drawdown. It's like the Sierras with the snowpack. We have seen it in Bakersfield and in the valley where the earth is dropped in because we've overpumped. We have to know the science behind it. And that's the simplest way to put it. All these issues are very complicated, and in a 2-minute time frame, it's very difficult to go through them all. Thank you.
Okay. I believe everybody got to answer that, correct? Everyone answered that, okay. All right, our next question will be on permitting. We will start with Bruce Jones, and we'll follow by Mr. Whitworth. The question is this: the county planning and building department is often a source of frustration for many of our farmers, ranchers, and rural property owners. It's difficult to get clear guidance on permit requirements, and the permit process is slow and onerously expensive. What can be done to improve this problem?
This is an issue that I do have some real experience in. I've been on the Templeton Area Advisory Group for 3 years, chairman for 2 years. Mostly what we do is look at land use applications. That Templeton area is about a 58 square mile area that includes portions of the Adelaide and portions of areas over the Paso Basin. The problem that I heard most often when I talked to people who brought projects to our board was that the process took too long and was too expensive. they often found it necessary to hire expensive planning agents to navigate the maze of our planning department. I will work with Trevor Keith and others in the management of that office to try to streamline this process. It needs to be better, cheaper, and faster. Part of the problem is that the planning department's understaffed. There's a chronic understaffing of the department because of turnover. I do believe that if we clean up the process, we will be able to keep long-range ethical planners that will want to stay and work in our department. Thank you.
John?
Well, folks, I like to think of myself as a problem solver. If you remember, I mentioned I was a licensed California building contractor for 10 years in Santa Barbara. And the way the process went was like this. I would go in with plans. I was met by people who were hospitable, thank me for coming in. They said to me, John, build it by code, do it right, and we'll issue you permits. And that's pretty much what happened. They would come back, they would make reasonable requests. We would do those things and the process worked. So folks, get ready for this one. I have been knocking on doors. I'm talking to people about building in this county. Home Depot, that's my favorite place. That's my Disneyland. I spend a lot of time there. I do my own projects. People are not unhappy. They are livid. They are livid about what is happening in this county. Arms are folded. They walk into the office. It's like, we dare you to come in here and get your plans done in a reasonable time. They have to come back again and again. Exorbitant fees beyond belief that should not be happening. And so, and understaffed folks, the first thing I'm going to do, if that were my department, I would staff it up immediately. What's the holdup? We're understaffed and we have 300 people in the county that we have not hired. Then we have a problem in the county. We need to get people in there that are responsible, that know how to do their job, and they take care of the people. They serve the people. People should not become begging, praying that they can get their plans through without getting more and more fines. So it needs to be fixed, and I know how to do that. Thank you very much.
All right, Geoff Auslen.
Permitting process needs to be streamlined. We do need to stop raising fees. We need to make sure the office is staffed up to its numbers. I'm not sure if it is right now or not. And we may need to expand it. It's the one area we might have to expand. People are moving to the Central Coast. We're one of the 117 counties that the population is growing, not shrinking in this state. We have to be able to get permits out the door quicker with less fees so people can build and people can get a permit to drill a well, because that's the same thing. Again, you have to have a permit. You're going to go to the planning department. That's where you go. Plan check is where most things are outsourced to. We need to be maybe taking it back and doing it ourselves. We need to be able to go up to the front desk during business hours, which should be 8 to 5 p.m., not 8 to noon. We need to open the North County office. So folks in North County, which is where a lot of the growth is happening, it's not happening on the coast. There's not a lot in South County compared to North County right now. We need to make it easier for folks to be able to get their permits, get through the red tape, and move on. Thank you.
There's no doubt a lot of frustration with getting land use and building permits right now. And a lot of that is a consequence that may be familiar to many of you, whether you farm or have other small businesses. Coming out of COVID, our staffing at the county has been hit with the great resignation, like many small businesses have been as well. And at the same time, coming out of COVID, the pent up demand for doing things, for creating, you know, from remodels to new houses to other kinds of land use has surged. So yeah, we are understaffed, and we need to work on that. We also need to work on the internal mechanics of our process so that we are as efficient as we possibly can be. That's a fundamental role of government, is to provide effective and cost efficient services. You know, campaigning is fun though. I smile to hear these gentlemen say that we're both going to cut fees and we're going to hire more staff. Those two things are directly in opposition to one another. How, you know, exactly where are you going to pay new staff? You know, we have reduced fees for projects that we see provide public benefit, like affordable housing. That's a good thing. At the same time, and we were at a forum last week, I had a paper version of the county budget. It's about that thick, $750 million worth of spending. And I challenged the gentleman at the table here that if you want to do these things that you see, like staff up the planning department, you're going to have to look in that budget and decide what you're not going to do. And that's a tough thing. One thing that we have found works well is to help educate those who are coming to the planning department. And our planning department is doing that. That's something that my office does as a matter of constituent service very, very frequently. Folks who understand the process better have much more success and are much happier.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Our next question will be on housing. We're going to start here with Geoff Auslen, then Bruce Gibson. Question is this: the cost and availability of housing continues to plague our entire community. This limits the ability for our children to live here and carry on the family farm, and it also makes it difficult for farmers to house their workers. What is your plan to make housing more affordable and abundant in SLO County?
Before I start on that, I'm going to use my time to go back on the previous question. And I am going to say there's ways that you can staff up that planning department right away. You can get your retirees back at half a year that know what they're doing, know the regulation, and you can speed it up. There's no reason we're not trying to do that. Moving forward to your question on affordable housing, there's areas that need density that are acceptable. And that doesn't change the character of the neighborhood of where one might live. You also need to be reducing fees, which my opponent was not in favor of and voted against reducing building fees at a few weeks back at the County Board of Supervisors. If you're reducing fees, you have lower housing cost because you're not putting $40,000 into things. You also need to make sure you have good electrical and good gas. If you're getting rid of one or the other, like the city of San Luis is now penalizing you for doing natural gas, that drives up the cost. That keeps it out of your pocketbook. Inflation's at an all-time high. The average family of four is now paying $6,500 a year more than they did last year to live here on the Central Coast. We need to do things efficiently as possible. Building was going on prior to the pandemic. It's still going on. We need to have workforce housing. We need breaks for workforce housing. No different than what my opponent said on the Williamson Act years ago, which keeps our farmers keeping their land and not having to pay because there's $1 million house next to them. We need to be able to figure out how to do workforce housing and have more folks here. Thank you.
Bruce Gibson?
Yeah, so you got two basic paths that you need to address. One is the market rate house. You know, and a lot often the attack is, well, the county charges too much for fees. In fact, the median household income faces a roughly $300,000 gap in what house they can afford versus what the median house price is. Of that, county fees are a minor part, less than 10%. So what we can do is zone and plan properly so that there are places where dense housing can be established, where things like planned unit developments can be established, which changes the amount of open space that needs to be done, changes some of the parking requirements so that a developer can have a better chance of actually having a profitable project. I'll go back to farm worker housing since Mr. Burgess asked specifically about that. In the last couple of years, we have revamped our farm worker housing regulations. So no longer does the housing only pertain to the parcel upon which agricultural activities are occurring. This can now be housing individuals who work in an area around that. And as I recall the details of that, the number of units on a particular parcel can be expanded. So we've done that. On the deed restricted side, the board made a terrible decision. There was an inclusionary housing fee that applied to houses over 2,200 square feet. Now think about that. If you've been out on the market recently, a house over 2,200 square feet is not affordable to any but a wealthy family anymore. This fee was generating $400,000 to $500,000 and projected to generate $800,000 that we can take and leverage with nonprofit housing providers like People's Self-Help to get affordable housing actually accomplished, like we did in Cambria, permitted within the last year, 35 new units there.
Bruce Jones?
There are things we can do with low-cost housing. I mentioned earlier that I served on the Templeton Area Advisory Group. There was a project sponsored by People's Self-Help, the Rolling Hills Extension. It was a nice apartment project that there was no opposition in the community. They put out their plans. We put out our public noticing for our TAG meeting. No one objected. It passed without any recommendations from the Templeton community. It was accepted and it pushed forward. We need to look at those kind of projects. We need to look at the kind of projects that communities are happy to have. And if we do that, we can provide a lot of low-cost housing. It just takes a different direction, but we need to work on that. I don't think stacking and packing houses on one lot is the answer, but I do think that providing good plans that are well thought out and appealing to the community are easy to get approved with county zoning or local city zoning. Thank you.
John?
Well, affordable housing can be looked at many different levels, but one of the issues that's way out of the county has to do with overall inflation. Inflation right now, folks, is totally out of control. $7 for gasoline. You see what it costs to live. So even talking to somebody about affordable housing, if they can't get to work because they're on a fixed income is a big issue. One of the problems we have builders, we talked about this earlier. Builders can't get these projects like the good doc here talked about. There are some really good projects out there, and we need to look at those things which you consider affordable, that they can build units that people can get into. But if the fees are more and more fees we talked about, I've talked to people that are just exasperated, just come back to the county, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. We're talking big money here. Guess where that ends up? If a builder has to pay more and more and more to build it, he can't take that hit. So he's going to pass it on to the buyer. So we have the chasing our tail issue here that one of the problems again is getting reasonable building permits so we can get these projects through. Thank you.
All right. I think we got time for maybe one or two more questions. John Whitworth, we're going to start with you on this one, followed by Bruce Jones. The question is this: where do you get your information about agriculture?
Well, I'll be very honest with you. I'm aware of what's going on in agriculture. I looked at this good magazine, the Farm Bureau News and the Alert. I am not an expert in agriculture, but I do understand what it takes. People have to work hard. They have to be able to have enough water. They have to be able to manage these properties, which is big business, very complex when you think about getting fertilizer, getting all the things you need to be able to go forward and be successful. And so Me and my experience, what I would do the first thing when I get elected as District 2 Supervisor, I would come over here like I did with Sheriff Parkinson and sit down and ask what the issues are. I have not made it here yet. I would ask to sit with the folks that are on the Farm Bureau, your board of directors, and say, folks, please tell me, what are your issues? And then I will digest those things and they will become my issues, and we'll go to work and help you get what you need with water, land use, to be efficient, good business people.
Bruce Jones?
Where do I get my information? I have a kitchen cabinet that helps me with my campaign. 2 of the members on this cabinet are multi-generational farmers in our county. They give me good advice, and I think that I'm smart to follow that advice. I guess also I was born on a farm, and we talked ag a lot, but it was in Michigan, and raising sheep there was not all that hard compared to the water challenged area we live here in. That's all.
Mr. Gibson?
So, Mr. Burgess, I eagerly look forward to the Farm Bureau's newsletter, which comes out on Friday afternoon, sometimes early Friday evening. And the weekend doesn't start until I have a chance to look at it. I also very much appreciate I think it's either bi-monthly or quarterly meetings that we engage in my office, and my direct line to you is invaluable in that. But as I mentioned, I was also a farmer growing oranges for 25 seasons. And through that, I got very directly involved in agriculture. I still keep in contact with fellow citrus growers that were farming in certainly up the North Coast. And an even wider exposure comes through the farmers market. As I indicated, my folks managed Cambria and for 20 years. And the relationships we made there with virtually, well, they're all small by ag business standards, was a real pleasure. And this was not just citrus growers. This was every potential kind of crop. And I understood, with my own experience, their struggles with regulations of pesticides, their struggles with the regulation of irrigated agriculture, which has under a very strict order by the Regional Water Quality Board. I also understood their desire to add value to their products, and how they worked hard to increase the profit margins by selling specialty vegetables, direct marketing, a whole bunch of different things. So I am continue to have a really wide range of relationships with folks who are actually making their primary living by growing food, meat, and fiber.
Okay. I think we got time. You get a chance to answer. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Geoff.
Hey, thank you. So the Farm Bureau is one avenue, the Ag Information Network's another. Sunday mornings, I think it's 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. I'm crazy enough. I actually watch it on the television regularly. And then, of course, I own Vino Vice Security. So we do a lot of security at wedding venues and wineries. And I have Glenn's Repair in Atascadero. So therefore, I have the ag community coming in all the time. I know what the water issues are. I fix their pumps. I sell their pumps. I give them fix their generators, sell them generators. I'm well aware of what goes on daily based on my clientele. And that's been true for at least the last 10 years. I'm becoming more and more knowledgeable of what's going on. And that's South County and North County. You go to farmers market, whether it's grown here in this county or grown in another county, you still have the same issues, whether it's pesticides, whether it's regulation, whether it's an inspection. Right now, we're inspecting the grocery stores for flowers coming on produce trucks. It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. You don't inspect the lettuce when it gets to the grocery store, but now you have to inspect flowers, plants. This is insane. This is where overregulation is stepping on us. Inefficiency is stepping on us. That's where I get my information from. Thank you.
All right. Our next question is one we did not have earlier. I'm trying to make sure you guys weren't just copying all the answers from the first round, but this question will be on energy. And we're going to start with Bruce Gibson, followed by Geoff Auslen, then Whitworth and Jones. Question is this: the County of San Luis Obispo has spent considerable time and money deciding whether to join the Central Coast Community Choice Energy Program. What are the pros and what are the cons, and how would you vote?
I did vote to join it when it came before our board 3 years ago. It's frankly an embarrassment that the county as a jurisdiction is the only one of the cities and counties at the cities. All 7 cities are in community choice energy and the county is not. And it was interesting. It appeared to me to be, you know, what I heard, the argument was, well, this was just another layer of government. And I think what that ignores is a lot about how energy is regulated in the state. The pros of it were very clear. Energy available at or below the rates that PG&E charges. And in some instances, measurably below, quite obviously below 3 to 5%. Along with that, the generation of a revenue stream that I believe was going to be in the millions of dollars. It's been a while, but that money from the public good charge that would come to the county for us to do a number of things. One of them is to promote renewable energy solutions, rooftop solar in disadvantaged communities, for instance, which would speak directly to, I think, the quality of life of farm workers. The ability to train a workforce that would actually get out and be able to learn new energy installation techniques and have an opportunity to form businesses. So that we gave that up when we chose not to do it. We also gave up an opportunity to actually meet the greenhouse gas reduction goals that the state has mandated through AB 32 that we meet. So it was a triple loss when we failed to do that. And again, the real problem there was the lack of a rational argument for the decision that was made. I can't wait for it to come back.
Geoff Auslen?
Well, first of all, we need electricity and we need power. We have to keep the lights on. Keeping Diablo open is definitely something that we need to be doing. My opponent to the left of me has voted against that for 20 years to keep Diablo open. We need the power. We need to reduce energy costs for agriculture and our housing. And we need to be looking at everything, all green energy as well. When it comes to CCE, the problem I have with CCE, I'm not against CCE. I'm against the fact that you have to opt out. You should be able to opt in. If you have Verizon as your carrier and tomorrow you're told you now have AT&T and you have to opt out, you're not going to be very happy about it. Now, I know firsthand the average savings is about $1.20 at the most a month, if not a year. I also can tell you opting out is not the easiest either. Personal experience. I'm well aware of it. So there are some flaws with CCE. If you call PG&E and turn the power on, they tell you you're in that program if you live in that area. Those things are the regulation problems that we face in agriculture, we face in business every single day. And that's the problem. I'm not against CCE. I'm not against alternative power. I'm not against PG&E, but it all has to be working together. And you want to create jobs by teaching people new trades. We're already doing that. We already have solar companies. I have solar at my business. I have solar on my house. It's a wonderful thing. But I also draw PG&E at night, and I don't like having 2 bills or 1 or 2 companies coming on my bill. Thank you.
John Whitworth?
Well, this one I would agree with what Geoff had to say pretty much, but I do agree with the board's decision and I think they did the right thing.
Bruce Jones?
I think that the jury's still out as to which electrical source is going to end up being a lower cost one. I think that we need to have the ability in communities like Atascadero where they've chosen to go with CCE. People have to have that option to opt out of it if it turns out it's significantly more expensive in the long run. Other than cost, I don't have any particular thoughts about it.
All right, we've about run out of time tonight. We're going to do closing statements from all the candidates. We'll do 2 minutes for these closing statements. Bruce Jones, we'll start with you, followed by Bruce Gibson, then Jeff, then John.
I'll be brief. I'll be brief. I want to thank the Farm Bureau for sponsoring this event. Thanks to all of you that are here in person and for those of you listening on Zoom. When I'm elected to the Board of Supervisors, I will work hard to represent all the unique portions of District 2. I do not have a business or a job to compete for my time. When I worked as a surgeon, I worked 60 hours a week. I intend to work just as hard to represent my neighbors in this district. 3 generations of my family now live in District 2. I've been married to the love of my life, Joanne, right over there. We have 3 adult children and 9 grandchildren. I care deeply about this very special place, and I want to preserve it for future generations. Check out my website, jonesforsupervisor.com. You might want to look at my position paper on homelessness, since that came up a little earlier. I am Dr. Bruce Jones, the best Bruce for District 2. Thank you.
Bruce Gibson.
Yeah, add my thanks to the Farm Bureau and all of you for spending a bit of time on a beautiful evening dealing with public issues. It is really important, and public engagement is fundamental and is increasingly challenging to get as our civic conversation seems to get fragmented. You know, we've talked a lot about various challenges and various opportunities that this county faces. And I see a bright future for this county. You know, we have a big list of things to do. And to take advantage of the opportunities we have to address the challenges that we face is going to take vision, and it's going to take leadership, and it's going to take a commitment to service. That's been the hallmark of my time in office now, some almost 15 and a half years. What I have found is that an openness and commitment to the communities that I serve has paid off handsomely in results. The Los Osos sewer, the restoration of the Cayucas Pier, the securing of Dog Beach between Morro Bay and Cayucas, another mile of the California coast now in public ownership. 4 new library branches. You know, all of these things occur because communities come together. And it has been my honor and my pleasure to work with communities to get these things done. The same applies to my work in the agricultural community. I think you'd find, if you talk to the wide membership of the Farm Bureau, that I have been a leader in trying to get rational water solutions in, particularly in the Paso Basin. There's been a distinct lack of leadership in the current North County supervisors. The plan that is going to balance that so important basin is being picked apart by the state right now as inadequate. I look forward to bringing folks together to get stuff done. I appreciate your time tonight and wish you a very good evening.
Geoff Auslen.
Thank you, and thanks to the Farm Bureau for hosting this forum. I've been really practicing what I've been preaching for about 22, 23 years here in this county. I've had businesses, I do it, I'm a doer. I've fundraised, I helped get the Joy Playground open, under budget and on time, in a Atascadero, an all-inclusive playground so people could play together. I'm in North County. You first have to represent the district you're elected for first, and the county secondly. The incumbent has pretty much had the coast. He doesn't have to deal with a lot of the issues as much. You can't really build in Cayucas and Cambria a lot. You have the Coastal Commission. They're going to stop things. North County right now has the influx. We have the water issues, which I think we can solve. I think we can solve the housing issue as well by having less regulation. The incumbent's been in office 15 and a half years. It's time for a change. You folks have to make that decision. You'll have ballots in about a week. The election's June 7th. And I hope you make the right decision. I'm pro-business, pro-ag. I have a proven track record. I've done it. I've supported 4-H. I've supported FFA. I'm endorsed by Jordan Cunningham, Assemblyman Cunningham. My My webpage is auslenforsupervisor.com. You can read about me there. You can call me. I'm more than happy to sit down with anybody. But I've been very active also in the ag community, so I know what's needed. Thank you.
All right, John?
Well, the good folks sitting here and the rest of that will vote. I would like you to look at the virtues of the gentleman sitting up here, all of us, and that should be consideration because when you hire somebody, what have they done? Who are they? And I think there's some very fine people here, but I think you should look at that. But one of my major concerns that I see, although the county does a lot of good things, so don't say John's here beating up on the county. However, transparency is a big issue. There's a lot of things going on inside this county, and I've been talking to people. This is not John Whitworth saying, oh, I have an opinion. I've been out knocking on doors. People have invited me into their homes and said, we are unhappy. We see all this vitriol. We see all these issues, and we want to go forward, and we want somebody to come in and solve them. So either you get more of the same, a revolving door, let's look at the issues, yada, 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 and keep throwing money at it and not getting results, or you get a fresh look and you get people who are willing to fiercely fight for the good citizens of this county. And remember, the county works for us. We don't work for them. And there's a certain body of people in the county that have a different opinion. So we need some fresh blood to come in there and make good decisions and not fold our arms and say, right hand, left hand. Okay, I'm to the right, you're to the left, and that's where everybody's going to vote. Then again, I've said this before, why even have a board of supervisors? We can all go home and say, well, we're going to vote this way or this way. So the point being is, we need to make some changes. We can do those things. And if you want somebody to fight fiercely for those and be fair with everybody, that's who you should vote for.
All right. With that, I want to thank all of our candidates. Please join me and give a round of applause to all of our candidates. Thank you all so much for participating. We'll be posting this video on our Facebook page and also at slowfarmbureau.org. Everyone have a great night. Thank you.
Yeah, if you could me up too. You're getting better, we're all getting better. And